Chapter 81. The pressure is killing me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 81. The pressure is killing me. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chu Jing shook his head. Our CEO has been like this for a few days now. The pressure is killing me. Yu Tingfeng rocked the wine glass in his hand, saying lazily, if you don't want the pressure to kill you, then perhaps you'd be better off joining Wu Fang. Upon hearing that, Chu Jing waved his hands immediately and declined. No, that I'm good. I still have a lot of energy, I have no problem working overtime the entire night. Joining Wu Fang in the Highlands was the last thing on Chu Jing's mind. He saw Wu Fang's picture a few days ago, and the man's face had already changed beyond recognition. Chu Jing was shocked by Wu Fang's hobo-like appearance. Helan Fangyan chuckled, and the corners of his eyes revealed a spellbinding charm when he laughed. He had a handsome and aloof expression, but it changed instantly into one that made others feel shy and nervous. Most of the women in that private room could not help but look over to him. The rest of those rich young men were unhappy. Motherf *Ker, they thought, this is bad for our reputation. One of those young men then decided to attract attention to himself, saying loudly, hey, I really wonder what it is about Yan Mingzhu that Luo Jinchuan likes. She's a complete B***tch. A few days ago, she beat up a small-time female celebrity. The girl had to be hospitalized and her face was completely destroyed by that Yan Mingzhu. My god. Seriously. If it was me, I'd have kicked her away long ago. What's the Yen family playing at anyway? They're that brave to do such a thing. His words drew scrutiny from the people around him. A young woman opined, maybe young Master Jean is truly in love with Miss Yen. Maybe he likes her temper. Tch, don't be ridiculous. If it was true love, why would he have gotten into an affair with the celebrity? Have you even seen the pictures? I have them on my phone. He was hugging and kissing her in the parking lot. I think Luo Jinchuan would have just went into action right then and there. He's a man, right? Men are all the same. Luo Jinchuan's just pretending to be all proper, but the truth is, deep down, he's just the same as any other man when he takes off his pants. Curious, Chu Jing asked, what picture? Can I take a look? The man tapped into his gallery at once, then handed the phone over to Chu Jing. Taking the phone, Chu Jing laid eyes on the picture and remarked, it really is him. Luo Jinchuan looks like he's raging with lust. He usually acts very proper, right? He doesn't look decent at all here. From the picture, it's like he's going to just at the parking lot. Sigh. Before Chu Jing could finish his sentence, the phone was snatched away. He looked up to see Yu Tingfeng looking rather peculiar while holding the phone. Chu Jing chuckled. Hee, big brother, this Jinchuan is very different in private. This woman is Shuezheng. Yu Tingfeng's voice was unervingly calm, prompting Helan Fangyan to stare at him. Helan Fangyan knew Yu Tingfeng for quite a long time, and as a big-shot lawyer, his perception and vision was particularly sharp. One look was all it took for him to realize that something was off with Yu Tingfeng. The cell phone's owner nodded. Yes, young Master Yu. That's the celebrity, Shuezheng. Yan Mingzhu wanted to kill her after seeing the picture. She knocked Shuezheng unconscious and called the ambulance after that. I'm guessing the poor girl will have to be hospitalized for a couple of months. Yu Tingfeng stared at the picture and smiled all of a sudden. Everyone present there knew how handsome he was, but the mesmerizing qualities of his smile were known only to a few who had seen it before. Those who had that pleasure would go around telling others the same thing. One did not truly witness what it meant to see the sunrise if one had yet to gaze upon his smile. The entire room was stumped, and no one dared to say anything. Childhood friend, Helan Fangyan, was the sole person who understood that sinister was the one and only one word capable of describing Yu Tingfeng's smile. The latter was teetering on the edge of flying into a rage. Helan Fangyan snuck a look at the photograph and noticed the male subject seemingly kissing with the female subject. The female's face was fully obscured, and the only thing that could be seen was her rather beautiful figure. Chapter 82. Yu Tingfeng felt that he had been played. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 82. Yu Tingfeng felt that he had been played. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. But what secret does the photograph hold? What made Yu Tingfeng so angry? Helan Fangyan stared at the woman in the photograph. He had a nagging feeling that something was not quite right. He watched as Yu Tingfeng tapped the screen and sent those photos to his phone. He then deleted the original photos from the other person's cell phone. Helan Fangyan was at loss for words. Yu Tingfeng tossed the phone back to Chu Jing, then got up to leave without even saying a word of goodbye to Helan Fangyan. Everyone in the room was in shock. What was going on with that young master? Doubt began surfacing in Helan Fangyan's heart. He trailed behind and asked, "Are you alright, Tingfeng? What's up with the photo? Does that Shuizheng have anything to do with you?" Yu Tingfeng paused and smiled. Shuizheng. Sure, Shuizheng. I didn't think she was that good. Yan Mingzhu thought it was Shuizheng, and so did everyone else. However, Yu Tingfeng was not blind. Even if he could not see her face, and even though the woman had a change of clothes and wore fake hair, he could still recognize that woman. It was Yan Qingxi. Yan Qingxi. Yan Qingxi had some F*King guts to seduce him and Luo Jinchuan at the same time. It was no wonder then, that she got the role again. She took it by force, of course. Perfect, her actions were just perfect. For the first time ever, Yu Tingfeng felt that he had been played. He was waiting there like a fool for Yan Qingxi to come begging him, but as it turned out, he was not needed at all. Helan Fangyan felt distressed. What's going on with you, really? I've never seen you like this. I've got something to take care of. I'll tell you when I'm back. Once Yu Tingfeng left, he called Jiang Lai. Book me a flight to Jing City. Now. Having received a call in the middle of the night from the boss, Jiang Lai knew that something was off. He immediately said, "CEO Yu, it's already scheduled for tomorrow." Jiang Lai was hardly able to finish his sentence, as Yu Tingfeng interjected, "I want to fly there as of right now." Immediately. Jiang Lai's hand, the one holding his phone, shook like a leaf immediately. Something was definitely not right. Even with the phone separating the two of them, Jiang Lai could sense Yu Tingfeng's frightening ruthlessness. He always knew that Yu Tingfeng had a horrible temper, but as the years went by, it toned down quite a fair bit. Despite not having the best of days as of late, Jiang Lai did not expect Yu Tingfeng to reach a point where he resembled a gunpowder barrel with an ignited detonator. At any given time, an explosion could happen. Jiang Lai thanked his lucky stars that he was not beside Yu Tingfeng. He was careful with his words. "Okay, I'll check the flights." Climbing off the bed, Jiang Lai switched on his computer with his shivering hand and checked the flights for that night. Unfortunately, there were none. He muttered softly, "CEO Yu, there's no night flight to Jing City, perhaps I can get you the earliest morning flight." Yu Tingfeng hung up without hearing him out. "Hello. CEO Yu. CEO Yu." Jiang Lai held his cell phone in bewilderment. Which bloody B**** angered our young master now? Will I ever be able to spend my days in peace? Yu Tingfeng sped home and went straight for the garage without even going into the living room. He started the engine of his other car, a sports car. Mrs. Yu came out feeling rather startled. "Tingfeng, what's going on?" "I'm going out for a bit." Yu Tingfeng's voice remained steady, and not even the slightest hint of anger was present. Chapter 83. He lost his self-control because of a woman. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 83. He lost his self-control because of a woman translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The sight of that car made Mrs. Yu worried. Why are you driving the Pagani then? Didn't you say you won't go around racing anymore? All men were fond of cars, and Yu Tingfeng was one of them. He liked them, he had the money, and he could dabble in them. His garage kept many of the world's most luxurious supercars. The total price had already exceeded 100 million. In his younger, wilder days, he engaged in things such as betting on race cars and even participating in those races. That Pagani cost him about 30.5 million, yet it did not even make it to being the top cars in his supercar collection. Yu Tingfeng opened the car door and got in. I'm going to settle something. His answer intensified Mrs. Yu's anxiety. What is it that you're settling? Where are you going? You're going racing with other people, aren't you? My son, you can't join them. Ignoring her completely, Yu Tingfeng closed the car door, revved the car and zoomed off. Mrs. Yu got so angry that she held her heart and cried out in pain. Everything was perfectly fine. What happened? Helan Fangyan was sure that something was going on with Yu Tingfeng. After a flurry of unanswered calls, Yu Tingfeng finally picked up. Helan Fangyan asked anxiously, "Where are you, Yu Tingfeng?" With one hand on the steering wheel, the streetlights and building lights flashed past him. He was going at such high speeds that everything outside the window was a blur. On the road, Yu Tingfeng replied calmly. What do you mean on the road? Where are you going? Jing City. Helan Fangyan felt that the bugger had gone insane. Why the hell are you going there at night? *CK, you're driving there. You're crazy. It's so far away. Even on an airplane, you'd need at least 2 hours. Yu Tingfeng hung up immediately. It was because it was so late that he decided to do that. How would he sleep if he did not find something to do? Yan Qingxi, that woman, he. Once the call was hung up, Helan Fangyan was no longer able to call through. Luo City and Jing City were separated by about 1,000 and 0.3 kilometers, and that was the distance of the direct route used by airplanes. Even if Yu Tingfeng drove 400 kilometers per hour, it would take him at least 3 hours to get there. The crux though, was that even if he really did drive 400 kilometers per hour, he might face roadblocks. If he truly did encounter a roadblock set up by the traffic police, the jam would add another 3 hours, totaling 6, for him to finally reach the city. Helan Fangyan sat in his car feeling worried to death. He had no hope of sleeping well that night. He really did not know what the picture was all about. There was never an occasion when he actually saw Yu Tingfeng lose control in such a short period of time. So be it if it was during his younger days, but after all these years, Yu Tingfeng was clearly mature enough to keep a level head. The problem was in those pictures. Helan Fangyan shook his head. In all his years, it scarcely occurred to him that he would see Yu Tingfeng get so mad over a girl. It was a miracle. At exactly 6:30.4 in the morning, Yu Tingfeng finally reached Jing City after 5 hours of driving. The sky was just beginning to turn bright. Throughout the journey, many traffic police cars flagged him down, but all Yu Tingfeng had to do was make a call to get them to release him. He drove like a hurricane on the road and did not sleep throughout the night. He managed to vent out most of his anger, and slowly he was beginning to calm down. He lost his self-control because of a woman. He even laughed at himself when he thought about it. A derisive expression manifested on Yu Tingfeng's handsome face. Years had gone by since he last lost himself in such a manner. Yan Qingxi was truly an amazing woman. Her appearance divided his life into two clear-cut worlds. Yu Tingfeng was proud, indifferent, calm, and in control when it came to other people. With Yan Qingxi, logic and reasoning were thrown out the window, causing him to completely lose all sense of himself. Chapter 84. The knives are out for Yan Qingxi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 84. The knives are out for Yan Qingxi. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Yu Tingfeng was no longer in a rush when he reached the place. He would get to that woman very soon. He thought about how he would settle scores with her. His resentment would not be suppressed otherwise. Half an hour more, and he would reach the filming location. It was then that his phone rang. His original decision was not to pick it up, but when he glanced and saw that it was Jiang Lai, he took the phone and accepted the call. Yes. The earnest Jiang Lai said, CEO U. Mississippi Qingxi. She boarded a flight back to Luo City at 6:10 this morning. Yu Tingfeng was left speechless. 4 hours later, Jiang Lai picked Yu Tingfeng up at Luo City's airport. An entire sleepless night coupled with 5 hours of driving did not seem to have any effect on Yu Tingfeng, save for a few red streaks on his eyes. He was calm, aloof, and haughty. Jiang Lai picked him up and hurriedly said, "Young master. You haven't slept the whole night. It's best to go home and rest first. I've told one of our subsidiary companies there to have your car sent back here. It'll be here soon." Having only received news of Yan Qingxi's trip to Luo City in the morning, Yu Tingfeng nearly went insane due to how tormenting it was. When Jiang Lai made the call to Yu Tingfeng, the former was on the verge of tears. After getting his boss the earliest possible flight, the young master finally returned. Jiang Lai had yet to find out why Yu Tingfeng spent the whole night putting himself through all that. Ever since Yu Tingfeng assumed the position of CEO, he rarely called him young master, but when he saw how Yu Tingfeng looked at that time, he could not help himself from using that form of address. Yu Tingfeng entered the car, closed his eyes, and said, "Go straight to Jinla residence." Afraid to talk too much, Jiang Lai said, "Yes." Jinla residence was precisely the place where the torturous Miss Yan Qingxi stayed at. Security stopped them at the entrance, but Jiang Lai explained, "We're friends of Miss Yan, who stays in Block 9, 17th floor, 2nd unit. We came to bring her for lunch." Hearing Jiang Lai giving all the details, the security guard let them in. "Oh, you may go in then." Yu Tingfeng opened his eyes suddenly once they reached the base of the apartment. "Give me your phone and wait for me down here." Jiang Lai had no idea why Yu Tingfeng wanted his phone, but in spite of that he handed it over carefully. Yu Tingfeng got down and walked into the building with Jiang Lai's phone. Jiang Lai grew apprehensive. The young master was not in a good mood, and Jiang Lai was praying that nothing serious would happen. Without a phone, he had no means of calling emergency medical services, firefighters, or the police. He was absolutely worried. Yu Tingfeng dialed a number immediately after entering the elevator. A week of filming went reasonably smoothly for Yan Qingxi. There was some friction with the other actors and the assistant director hinted at some unspoken rules quite a few times, but in any case, she managed to pull herself through it. For the few days after, the scenes they filmed did not require her role to be present. Since director Kai's series was going to begin filming soon, Yan Qingxi came back to Luo City. She was just about to unpack when her phone rang. Seeing that it was an unfamiliar number, Yan Qingxi hesitated before finally picking it up. "Hello. Where are you?" The voice stunned her momentarily. "Yu Tingfeng." She took a glance at the number and tensed up. Putting the phone back to her ear, she spoke in the calmest voice possible, "I'm outside doing a shoot." Yu Tingfeng had a relaxed tone. "Oh really? I'd like to claim what you owed me 2 nights ago." Yan Qingxi failed to detect any peculiarities in his voice. She cocked a brow, "You want to do it through the phone?" Walking out of the elevator, Yu Tingfeng said, "Sure, moan twice for me." Chapter 85. Are you jealous, Mr. Yu? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 85. Are you jealous, Mr. Yu? Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless fantasy translation. Walking out of the elevator, Yu Tingfeng said, "Sure, moan twice for me." Yan Qingxi clenched her teeth, nearly shattering them. She took a deep breath and said, "I'm okay with that, but are you sure that's enough for you?" "It isn't enough, of course. I very much prefer the real deal. Open up your door." Yan Qingxi was completely startled. "I'm shooting some scenes outside." Yu Tingfeng snickered. "Stop pretending. I know you're in there. If you don't want me to get someone who can break down this door, then be a good girl and open up." She ran to the door, tiptoed, then looked through the peephole. The sight of Yu Tingfeng looking at her with his reddened eyes made her go weak in the knees. Yan Qingxi knew that he could not see her at that moment, but she became terrified and panicky. The man standing outside had a sly little smile. After many years of struggling in dangerous situations, she formed an innate intuition when it came to impending peril. She knew that something was wrong with Yu Tingfeng. Yan Qingxi knew all too well that things did not just end the other day. Sooner or later, Yu Tingfeng would come for her, and until then her heart would always feel insecure. Yu Tingfeng was a patient man. He slowly undid the topmost button of his shirt while standing on the other side of the door. His voice was unhurried. "Don't make me say it a second time." Holding her phone tight, Yan Qingxi opened the door grudgingly. "How did you know I was here?" Yu Tingfeng ignored her. He placed the phone down, pushed Yan Qingxi in, then stepped foot into the house. Once inside, he looked at the surrounding in disgust. "Men have been here before." Clenching her jaw, Yan Qingxi retorted, "Well duh, my assistant comes here every day." "He's also a man." Yan Qingxi had her guard up. "What are you doing here?" Yu Tingfeng broke into laughter and tossed the phone aside. He took off his jacket and grinned while looking at Yan Qingxi. His lips were red, and they seemed bloodthirsty. "Why, to do you of course. Come on now, moan a couple of times for me." Enraged, Yan Qingxi shot back. "Go home and listen to your mommy moan." Yan Qingxi's expression looked terrible and she was slightly pale. There was anger in her eyes as she glared at Yu Tingfeng. He moved closer to her and lifted her chin with both his fingers, feigning frivolousness. "I'm much more interested in listening to a young woman's moan." She shoved away Yu Tingfeng's hand. "Move over." Yu Tingfeng grabbed her hand immediately and threw her on the bed. "Sure, I'd like to move around with you on the bed. Seems like we both have the same thought." Yan Qingxi's heart skipped a bit. She got up immediately, but she managed to only move slightly before Yu Tingfeng pushed her down once again. He loosened his necktie, tied up both her wrists, then fastened them onto the bed head. Yan Qingxi's uneasiness made her face turn red. "Yu Tingfeng, you king pervert. Let go of me." Seemingly in good spirits, Yu Tingfeng got up and circled the room like a lunatic. He found a pair of scissors and held it to her throat. "Stop trying to pretend you're a virgin. I don't remember you being such a modest woman. Why the f*ck are you still pretending after sleeping with Luo Jinchuan?" The color drained from Yan Qingxi's face, and in a split second, she understood what he meant. Yu Tingfeng knew she got in contact with Luo Jinchuan. She had no idea how much Yu Tingfeng knew, so she said purposely, "What do you mean by Luo Jinchuan? Can you be more specific? Why don't I know about this?" Yu Tingfeng's teeth felt sore. "You're still going to be stubborn. The picture is quite intimate, isn't it? How does it feel to fool around in the parking lot? You enjoyed yourself a lot, All of a sudden, Yan Qingxi calmed down. The only thing she worried about was that he recognized her from the photograph. She looked at him icily. "What is it you're trying to do, Mr. Yu? Are you jealous?" Chapter 86. How much more degenerate can you be, Yan Qingxi? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 86. How much more degenerate can you be, Yan Qingxi? Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Yu Tingfeng cocked a brow and remained silent. With the scissors, he slowly began cutting open Yan Qingxi's clothes. The true extent of his anger was indiscernible, but every single word he said stabbed Yan Qingxi in the heart. Yu Tingfeng had an indolent expression when he remarked coolly, "I don't even care that you've had fun with Luo Jinchuan. Come on, tell me. Why is it that you went and slept with Luo Jinchuan when you realized you couldn't seduce me?" Yan Qingxi felt extremely unwell that day as she did not have any breakfast. In the 3 years she spent out of the country, there were times she went hungry because she had no money to buy food. She did not even have the luxury of sipping some warm water, and gastritis soon plagued her. She did not know whether it was the gastritis acting up, or whether it was his words that caused her to feel that piercing sting. No one in the entire world believed her, no one at all. Everyone saw Yan Qingxi as a vixen who felt uneasy when she was not someone else's mistress. She would sleep with whoever it was that was male. She had no dignity, no self-respect, and no moral baseline. Every single person regarded her as such. Yu Tingfeng treated her in the same way, too. Yan Qingxi thought that she had long gotten used to it. She did not want to waste a single ounce of energy over such things, but at that moment, she realized that she felt hurt and still cared about it. Evidently, no one could shield themselves from negativity. She had suffered all kinds of distress before, and amid that adversity, she tempered herself. The more she was at a position of disadvantage, the more capable she was of putting on an unfaltering facade. She smiled coolly and flipped her head to the other side, making a show of ignoring him. Nothing she said would have any effect the man in front of her, because he had already gone insane. Yu Tingfeng's hand reached over and held Yan Qingxi's skin. With one jerk, he turned her face and forced her to look at him. He gave her a stone-cold glare. "Talk." Yan Qingxi smiled. Her makeup-less face was still as enchanting as ever. She could just about seduce any man that she wanted to. She asked, "What do you want to hear, Mr. Yu? How about the answer to my question?" Yan Qingxi's clothes were snipped off to reveal her light purple bra as well as her alluring fair skin. She looked directly into Yu Tingfeng's eyes, completely unfazed by her nakedness. "You're Yan Rook's man, and Luo Jinchuan is Yan Mingzhu's man. Is there any difference whether I sleep with him or with you? I'm a slut, after all. Being a mistress is my specialty, and I'm an expert in sleeping with other people's men. But you already know that, don't you? Aren't you supposed to have understood all that after we were caught in the act all those years ago?" Each one of her words was imperious. Yu Tingfeng found her sentences to be particularly ear-piercing. His first impulse was a desire to sew her mouth shut. That woman and the things she said would never make him happy. With his hand still on Yan Qingxi's chin, he asked, "Are you riling me up, Yan Qingxi? Trust me, I'll choke you to death." She titled her head to him and said, "Come at me, I'd like to see you try. If you don't, then you'd better call your mommy for me." Unable to contain himself any longer, Yu Tingfeng lowered his head and sank his teeth into the lips. "Yan Qingxi. I'm really curious sometimes. How much more degenerate can you be?" He bit down forcefully, drawing blood. It was painful, very painful in fact, but for Yan Qingxi, that sort of pain was not worth a mention. She stuck out her tongue and licked the blood up, grinning devilishly. She spoke in an incredibly menacing tone, "How much more?" "Well, I can't say for sure, but maybe you can try introducing your father to me. Who knows, I might become your stepmother and give birth to your little brother." Chapter 87. What reason do you have for controlling me, Yu Tingfeng? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 87. What reason do you have for controlling me, Yu Tingfeng? Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Yan Qingxi knew that she was just like an aunt to him. All she did was make a false show of bravado. Be that as it may, she was adamant about giving Yu Tingfeng a hard time. Why must she let herself be degraded by him? A shredding sound was heard. Yan Qingxi's skirt was torn in half. Yu Tingfeng glared at her with his chilly eyes. I'm sorry, my hand slipped. Only a bra and panties covered her entire body. She lay on the bed like a meek little lamb. Yan Qingxi's face remained indifferent. Oh, no problem. Mr. Yu's a rich man anyway. Just compensate for its full price. Don't you think about reneging on your debt, Mr. Yu. Yu Tingfeng ignored her and was completely transfixed on admiring her body. He could not resist himself from thinking that her body was completely perfect. Her lushness was just right, and she was full in all the right places while being lean in other areas. Her slender waist fits perfectly in his hand. The only time he slept with her was 3 years ago. He thought about it, remembering the pleasure and gratification he felt that night. That woman had a simply delectable body. Yu Tingfeng slid his hand across her flat stomach. Be my stepmother. Sounds like a good plan, but I don't think you can give birth to my brother. That was because his father's seed was no longer viable. Yan Qingxi frowned and stared icily at him. With a curl of the lips, Yu Tingfeng said, You can be my stepmother, but if you want to give me a brother, you'll have to borrow my sperm. Yan Qingxi was enlightened by that one sentence. His father was either infertile or had a vasectomy, which was why he was not as angry as she expected him to be. She stared frigidly at Yu Tingfeng. What is it you're trying to do? Are you here just to chastise me? Just because I slept with Luo Jinchuan. What reason do you have for controlling me, Yu Tingfeng? What relationship do you have with me? At most, I'm nothing more than a woman you slept with. No wait, you're nothing more than a man that I once slept with that one night. I've slept with plenty of men, and if everyone was like you, I'd be harassed to death by now. Benove calm almost fully naked, she was laying there in a very humiliating manner, yet she still stared at Yu Tingfeng without showing any sign of despair. He grinned, looking dashingly handsome as he did so. It was the most magnificent smile that Yan Qingxi ever laid eyes on, but within it, she could feel waves after waves of bone-chilling iciness. Yu Tingfeng leaned over and laid down beside Yan Qingxi. Anything that I've used before must remain mine, even if I don't want it anymore. Many years ago, I had a cat. It ran away, but I spent a lot of time and expense just to get it back. Where do you think the cat is now? Yan Qingxi kept quiet while Yu Tingfeng continued, When I found it, I fed it. And now, the peach tree in my backyard blooms magnificently every spring. Soon, Yan Qingxi felt a numbness in her scalp. This man is king lunatic. There was only one principle in Yu Tingfeng's world: his things, those that he had marked, belonged only to him. No one was allowed to touch it, even if he decided that he did not want that thing anymore. He was a tyrannical bigot who was crazily possessive and severely territorial. Yan Qingxi regretted having such shallow knowledge of Yu Tingfeng. She did not expect him to be so king sick in the head. She had no intention of being alone with him any longer and lamented letting Xiao Su leave early. Who knew what that B***starred Yu Tingfeng was going to do? Chapter 88. Why should I care about you, Yu Tingfeng? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 88. Why should I care about you, Yu Tingfeng? Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Yan Qingxi wanted Yu Tingfeng to piss off as soon as possible. She had no time to talk nonsense with him. He had everything he wanted, he had control over many things, and he was fearless. But not everyone was like him. He possessed everything that Yan Qingxi did not. Her strength was scant. Not long ago in the past, she did not even put much hope in continuing to live. She tilted her chin up and remarked sarcastically, If you want to f***ck me, then f***ck me now. If you want to kill me, then do it. If you don't want to do anything, then you'd better *ck off. You may have nothing to do, but I have plenty of things to deal with. I don't have the luxury of wasting time with you. Yu Tingfeng narrowed her eyes and said, sure. Since you're so eager to, then let's start. 1,000 words are omitted from here onward. Just visualize all kinds of styles. An hour later, a completely exhausted Yan Qingxi was dripping in sweat. Not a single tear was shed during the entire ordeal. Yu Tingfeng was puzzled. Was that woman incapable of crying? If another woman was in her place, that other woman might probably cry herself to death. She did nothing at all, not even a whimper or a tear shed. Someone once told Yan Qingxi that, a woman's tears were effective only towards someone who really loved her, and she kept that in mind, always. Tears would not be worth it otherwise. Why must she cry in front of that ****? What privilege did he have to see her during her weakest? Yu Tingfeng did not hit her, but he might as well have done it, for the way he humiliated her was worst. He did not want her because he regarded her as filth. Even though he had to control himself to the point of near explosion, he did not really touch her. Yan Qingxi smiled. You mother ****. You treat me like dirt, but you still lean so close to me. Who was more degenerate then? Herself, or him? Yan Qingxi was weak and completely spent, but the fire within Yu Tingfeng's heart was still burning. A strange feeling surfaced in his heart when he saw how different she looked compared to moments earlier. He fished out his handkerchief and wiped off the slick wetness from his hands. He then brushed his hand over Yan Qingxi's face. Next time, be a good girl. Don't make me unhappy again, because you'll be out of luck if you do. Yan Qingxi opened her eyes, yet they still did not show any sign of surrender. She stared at Yu Tingfeng, spoke hoarsely, that role belongs to me in the first place. I'm only taking back what's rightfully mine. What's wrong with that? Why should I be bothered about whether you're happy or not? Why should I care about you? What is it about you that's worth my concern? His unhappiness was the only thing that mattered, but no one cared about her happiness or whether she had suffered. Yu Tingfeng frowned. That's only a female company lead, right? Was it worth it to rack your brains for that? Why didn't you come looking for me if you wanted it? She glared at him with a derisive expression. If I came looking for you, would you help me? Why would you help me? You'll help me get it back if I spend the night with you, right? In that case, how are you any different from Luo Jinchuan? Besides, she did not even need to sleep with Luo Jinchuan to get her role back. Between the two of them, the only reason she would choose Yu Tingfeng was if someone injected hyaluronic acid into her brain. Having just returned to the country, she had yet to solidify her foundations. With no power as of yet, she was no match for their entitlement and influence. Even so, she could still manage to get what she wanted by relying solely on herself. She would never disclose all those things to Yu Tingfeng because he would not believe her anyway. Nobody would believe anything she said. Chapter 89. Yu Tingfeng, it's best that you don't fall in love with me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 89. Yu Tingfeng, it's best that you don't fall in love with me. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Yu Tingfeng was rather exasperated but still smiled. Yan Qingxi, out of all the women I've met, I think you're the one with the brightest prospects. Plenty of women tried to curry favor with him, but it was never enough. He extended a helping hand willingly and simply waited for her to grab it, but she did not grab on at all. Yan Qingxi's gaze was chilling. You flatter me. You, on the other hand, are the most despicable man I've ever seen. The dying embers of his anger flared up after hearing what she said. His phone began ringing, which interrupted him from saying a few things he had wanted to. He frowned and took it out. The caller was Helan Fangnian. He answered begrudgingly, yes. Helan Fangnian asked immediately, are you back already? Yu Tingfeng looked at the motionless Yan Qingxi lying on the bed. I'm back. Are you done with your stuff? Almost. Yu Tingfeng surmised that Yan Qingxi would calm down after being taught a lesson that day. BDNVL.M Helan Fangyan asked, are you free right now? I have something important I need to talk to you with. Where are you? Yu Tingfeng was still unsatisfied with Yan Qingxi after hanging up, but Helan Fangyan's matter seemed urgent. His felt slightly more content after seeing Yan Qingxi's miserable state. He picked up his jacket and prepared to head out, but before he left, he kindly undid the necktie that was binding Yan Qingxi's hands together. She felt particularly glum. Her hair was strewn all over her face while her lips were swollen, although the bite wound inflicted by Yu Tingfeng had ceased bleeding. Compared to her usual display of magnificence, she appeared as though she had fallen from grace. Her look was dismally alluring but madly captivating. Yu Tingfeng could not help himself from kissing her, but the kiss was not that pleasurable. The acerbic taste of blood tainted every corner of his mouth, but he was nonetheless enthralled by it. On that occasion, Yan Qingxi did not give him a single reaction throughout the entire ordeal, merely laying there like a rock. Yu Tingfeng released her and tilted her chin, forcing her to gaze into his eyes. I'll tell you what I'm thinking right now. I want to play with you, so you'd better listen to me and behave. If you want to fool around, sure, but wait till I'm done with you. Or else. If the same thing happens again, I'll send you out of the country in exactly the same way that you came in. Yan Qingxi glared icily at him. Her charming, fox-like eyes were as bone-chilling as a winter night. A chill would come over anyone who met that gaze. Yu Tingfeng frowned. Behave. Don't be going around pulling all sorts of dirty tricks. He got up to leave, but as soon as he reached the door, he heard Yan Qingxi's husky voice. Yu Tingfeng. You'd better pray to the Almighty God up there. Pray hard so you won't fall in love with me one day. Or else. Or else I'll F***king end you. She did not continue her sentence, but Yu Tingfeng was still able to hear the ruthlessness from her voice. Yu Tingfeng neither looked back nor answered her. He despised the notion. Did he love her? Someone as deplorable as her? Funny. In the lobby, Yu Tingfeng opened the car door and saw Jiang Lai holding a young man. Jiang Lai was pushing the man onto the car seat, even using his hand to cover the lad's mouth. The scene suggested that Jiang Lai was asserting himself as a top. It made Yu Tingfeng frown. What are you doing, Jiang Lai? Jiang Lai answered quickly, CEO, this is Miss Qingxi's assistant. He wanted to go up, so I stopped him. Jiang Lai became anxious as he waited in the car. The second he spotted Yan Qingxi's assistant, Su Mingming, heading up the building, there was no way he could let the young man head up. What if the big boss was killing someone upstairs? Jiang Lai had to keep watch, so he dragged Su Mingming into the car and took the chance to interrogate him. CEO, I just finished asking him a few things. All those photos in Yan Mingzhu's hands were the work of this guy right here. Yu Tingfeng's mind went blank. That young man took those photos. It was him. Chapter 90. He had wrongly accused Yan Qingxi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 90. He had wrongly accused Yan Qingxi. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Yu Tingfeng went blank. That young man took those photos. It was him. Slowly, Yu Tingfeng began to feel that there was something really fishy about the whole thing. Although his first thought was to kick Su Mingming out of the car, he changed his mind and asked, those pictures? You took them? The first time when he saw those pictures, he thought it was the work of paparazzi. However, if Yan Qingxi was the one behind this, then there was definitely something fishy about the whole thing. Lil Su's arm was nearly broken by Jiang Lai. The former did not intend to say a word, but he knew of Jiang Lai and was aware that Yu Tingfeng was conspiring against Yan Qingxi. Lil Su was very loyal to Miss Qingxi. Jiang Lai, however, was being absolutely ruthless. He would break Lil Su's arm if the lad did not talk. Unable to fight back, Lil Su spilled the beans. Having done that, he regretted it dearly. How could he have betrayed Miss Qingxi? Yu Tingfeng asked a question with no response from Su Mingming. This prompted Jiang Lai to exert more force on the poor lad. Su Mingming yelled in agony and heard a snap from his bones. Tell me. Did you or did you not take the photos? With a forehead laden with cold sweat, Lil Su answered, yes. It was me. If it wasn't, how could Miss Qingxi's face be covered up so perfectly in those photos? Yu Tingfeng narrowed his eyes, decreasing the chilling viciousness of his gaze by half. And after you took the pictures? Lil Su trembled madly. After that, I brought her away, of course. We're definitely not going to just stay there, right? Taking those photos was Miss Qingxi's plan, but we're not stupid. I purposely take those photos from a particular angle. Miss Qingxi didn't even kiss the man. Our Miss Qingxi's not a reckless woman. Being a man himself, Lil Su could roughly make out what Yu Tingfeng really wanted to know, which was nothing more than to find out whether Yan Qingxi slept with Luo Jinchuan. That was the only thing men were concerned about, right? Judging from CEO Yu's looks, he seemed to care about it a lot. Yu Tingfeng was silent. Yan Qingxi's last words surfaced abruptly in the recesses of his mind. A tiny, piercing pain appeared in his heart. Love. Heh. Yu Tingfeng felt a sudden uneasiness in his chest, but he suppressed and said, scram. Hearing that, Lil Su bolted out of the car immediately and dashed into the building. Jiang Lai saw the uneasiness in Yu Tingfeng's expression. He muttered, CEO Yu. Yu Tingfeng closed his eyes and kept quiet, making Jiang Lai wary of doing anything. After some time, Yu Tingfeng said, let's go and meet Helan. Yu Tingfeng told himself that even though Yan Qingxi did not actually sleep with Luo Jinchuan, she still seduced Luo Jinchuan on purpose. She was in the wrong because she teased Luo Jinchuan while flirting with himself at the same time. Though it may be a false accusation, it was she who brought it onto herself. That day should be treated as a lesson for her. He would give her the cold shoulder and coax her a bit after a day or two. All she wanted was to be famous and shoot movies, so he could simply invest in 2 movies for her. After all, women were all the same. One should never indulge them because the more they were indulged, the pushier they would become. His entire day's labor would have been in vain if he went up there at that moment. Yan Qingxi was a woman who loved taking advantage of others' weaknesses. Yu Tingfeng told himself that what he did was right and he was not the culpable party. Out of the blue, he asked, has Luo Jinchuan been having it too easily recently? Jiang Lai's hand shuddered. He knew what that question meant and so nodded. I think so. A chilling grin came over Yu Tingfeng and his eyes filled murderous intent. Underscore 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 savage seer. The foolish road to lowliness has only just begun. HPMH.